So I'll move on now to our next speaker, and I'm delighted to introduce a fellow countryman, that's Donald Sheehan. And I had the pleasure a year or two ago to be actually on Donald's farm, which is down in Castlelyons in East Cork in the south of the country. And Donald is a dairy farmer milking 72 cows on his farm called Blossom Farm. He's also one of the farmers involved in the Bride Project, which is biodiversity regeneration in a dairy environment. And Donald has had a lifelong interest in wildlife, and some of the things that stimulated, I suppose, this interest and his involvement in the Bride Project were the disappearance of birds like the corncrake and the cuckoo and the skylark from his area. And also he could see the contradiction of producing honey while at the same time spraying weeds with herbicide to which kill the wildflowers. So it was those things that have I suppose formed Donald's interest in biodiversity and resulted in his involvement in the Bride Project. And delighted to hand over to you now, Donald, for your presentation, which is titled Healthy Soils and Biodiversity, What Ruminants Can Do That Cropping Systems Cannot. Over to you, Donald.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Frank, and thanks to the Animal Task Force for this invitation. I'm involved in two projects, as Frank said. One is the Bride Project, which is biodiversity regeneration in a dairying environment, and the other is I'm a farmer participant in the Danube Project, which is trying to improve the quality of our soils. Okay, Susanna. Okay. So these are the partners that are involved with the project. I'm going to go through them very quick, Susanna. Okay, so I just want to give an overview of why farmland biodiversity is in decline. So the focus for the past 50 years is on productivity and at the very lowest cost, and there's inevitably going to be a pinch on the environment. We have more sprays, more fertilizers, more stock, more machinery, trying to get more from the land at the very lowest cost. In Ireland and in Europe, land is now the new quota since milk quotas went, and this is putting huge pressure on the limited asset that we have, that is land, and that's why we have more biodiversity loss. And there's no financial value at the moment on the non-productive part of the farm. That's because of eligibility and policy mainly. And agri-environmental schemes historically, they've been seen as purely for the extensive farmer. And the intensive farmer saw it always as something that's not for them. And extensive farming isn't seen as real farming, whereas really the extensive farmer probably has the most biodiversity at this stage because of the damage that intensive farming has done. And the industry need to come on board more. I feel that there isn't enough encouragement from the industry. They need to take more responsibility. It's not a farmer problem, it's an industry problem as well. Okay. So we try to align ourselves to the EU Green Deal. We try to get a minimum of 10% area for nature on each farm, and to improve the 90% and to improve the soil. Yeah. So we design, each farm gets a plan, and we have what's called the BMA, which is the biodiversity managed area. Every farm is mapped, and we add all the habitats together, and we try to get 10% natural habitats. Okay. Then we draw, these are the measures. They have 15 measures they can choose, including one down at the bottom, which is a farmer suggested measure. We ask each farmer if they have anything to contribute themselves and anything they'd like done, and if we agree that it'll improve biodiversity, we'll pay for it. We pay for 100% of the measures, but only small increments. So we might pay for 100 meters of a hedgerow, or we might pay for 100 trees, but there's an incentive there for the farmer to also contribute, and I think that's important. Okay. So I'm going to take you quite quickly through the next few slides. This is just a typical intensive grassland, and there's virtually no biodiversity here. You have a monoculture of perennial ryegrass, and if this farmer was in the Bride Project, I just want to take you through as to how we could improve biodiversity on that farm. Okay, so here's just a Google image. And if you take that area that's highlighted there, and how to increase the biodiversity value. So you take the hedgerows in this field, they're contributing almost a half a hectare. Yeah, and then you have the field margin. So we look for 2 meters of a field margin all around each hedgerow. That's adding another half a hectare. You have a tree line down in the bottom. There's 60 trees planted in there. Then you have a wild bird cover over on the left-hand side. And this is the first time that land has been taken out. There's about a half a hectare taken out there. That's a pollinator plot during the summer, and it provides wild bird seed during the winter. Okay, this is a skylark plot, and this is almost a hectare taken out, but it's still grassland, and it goes back to what Humberto was saying at the beginning, that skylark and all the species that are really in trouble have coexisted with animals for thousands of years. The problem is that the number of animals and tractors and disturbance has increased, and they're not able to compete. But a lot of the birds that are in trouble are ground nesting birds that have lived side by side with livestock for thousands of years. So this is the skylark, and yeah, keep going. So this is the skylark, and if you go to the next slide, this is what the skylark has to compete with: machinery and livestock, and it's just not able to compete with that amount of disturbance, whether it's machines, fertilizers, sprays, or livestock. Then if you take the blue areas here, there was 2 ponds added in. That's bringing it to 200 square meters, and ponds are hugely beneficial for biodiversity. Then you added, if you keep going, some rough grassland. This was just an area that was fenced off, and it was between existing tree line that was there, but that's contributing 1,000 square meters. Then you have the next slide. There was oak woodland planted in a corner of the field down in the left-hand corner of the screen. There's 300 oak trees gone into a hectare there, and that was a rough area. It was formerly a quarry, but you're adding to the quality of the biodiversity on the plot. Then at the bottom there was wet grassland. This was just taken out. Again, it's used as part of the grazing platform, but very extensively. And you can see now that there's already 10 habitats that are gone in, increasing the total area to almost 3 hectares, which is over 10% of the original plot. So for very small changes, you can make significant improvements to biodiversity. If you want to improve the quality, the next slide, we put in bee scrapes on the field margins. That's just digging a scrape out on the hedgerow and creating habitat for pollinating species. Then there was nettle patches added. Nettles are the food plant of 5 different butterflies. And also there was a multi-species grassland and a pollinator plot. The pollinator plot is just adding wildflowers to the field margin and improving the quality. And this area finally is multi-species grassland, which is changing the grassland from 1 species to 6 or 7 different species, including red and white clover, which generates its own nitrogen and will lead to significant reductions in nutrient applications on that plot. Okay, next slide. So we score each of those habitats for quality, and the farmer is paid on the result of that score. So if he gets a high quality habitat, he gets a higher payment. So it's results-based payments based on the quality of the habitats, incentivizing the farmer to manage them properly. Next. So the Danube Project focuses on improving the soil, and I should mention that these are both EIP projects funded by the Department of Agriculture and the EU. And the Danube Project deals with biodiversity under the ground, and the Bright Project deals with biodiversity over the ground. Next. So the farmers have cut their fertilizer applications significantly. Next slide. And we use an Albrecht soil test. And if you look at we know what the organic matter is on the plots, and it's a guide. And we try to get up to at least 5%, and there's a total carbon per hectare target of 75. In this instance, it's at 58. But the project goes on until 2023, and we'll sample those plots again. And because of the management involved, we hope that we'll see improvements in the carbon per hectare targets, and also in the organic matter. Next. So the number of earthworms were sampled in each of the plots, and these are all the different farmers. The red line is adult earthworms, and the blue line is juveniles. And you can see the difference where there was 12 in the plot in one farm, and 13, and down the bottom there was only a half an earthworm and 0.85. So there's significant differences in the earthworm count, and part of the trial will be to try and improve the number of earthworms in the sample plots. Next. Also, we focus on reducing the anthelmintic use on cows and livestock, so that the manure doesn't. There's a problem with anthelmintics causing deaths in larvae that are used to break down farmyard manure, and reducing those anthelmintics and ultimately taking them out altogether is part of some of the measures that we're implementing. Next. This is a multi-species sward where we're putting in several species of grass, along with red and white clover, chicory, plantain, and other herbs, and reducing the nitrogen accordingly. Next. So to summarize, the plots, there are 4 plots, and one is a control plot. The plot 2 is we just add a carbon source. Plot 3 is where you have a foliar application of minerals, and plot 4 is where we add a microbial and a biological application, and we'll sample them again in 2023. We also do a water filtration test, an earthworm count, as I mentioned, and it's targeted nutrient allocation based on the Albrecht test and periodic sap analysis. So we actually feed the soil rather than the plant. We look at the soil more than the plant. And the aim is to increase the soil organic matter and reduce carbon sequestration potential, or increase, I should say. So this improves, we increase the biology in the soil, and through reduced nitrogen use and better slurry and soil management. So the final slide is it's just my own system here in Blossom Farm. We try to improve the biodiversity, we improve the soil health. And a healthy biodiversity below ground means a healthy biodiversity above ground. We try to reduce nitrogen and eliminate pesticides, and that is possible. We're very near to eliminating all pesticides. And a healthy soil, the focus is on the soil, and if the soil is healthy, the plants will be healthy, whether it's crops or whether it's grass. And livestock and nature have evolved side by side, but there needs to be a balance back to nature. We cannot continue at the intensity we're at and expect a healthy soil and expect biodiversity at the same time. It's not possible. Next. So I just want to acknowledge the Sinead Hickey, Dara Hulacan, and John Finfantagis, and Paul Moore, Tony Nagel, and our 42 farmers. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Donald. That was really interesting. And there was a lot of similarities with Alex's talk, you know, in terms of the focus on results and outcomes rather than measures in terms of what you're trying to do in the schemes. And I think, Donald, you know, it was really interesting there to see what you were able to do on that farm in terms of improving biodiversity by various measures, which you know, I would think did not interfere very much with the milk production capacity of that farm, but we'll come to that maybe in the discussion.